Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's virtual community circle and transmission. It's wonderful to be with you. I'm coming from a backup computer today, so just in the moments before we got started, I realized my drawing tablet isn't going to work to be able to share today. So I'll have to draw with my hands if there are any questions that inspire that level of sharing. And I think the angle of the camera is a little different and all of that. But anyway, I'm here, you're here. Glad you're here. Welcome to everyone who's tuning in live. And for those of you who are participating in the replay, if you're new to my channel here, you'll notice there's a link on whatever platform you're on that will give you a chance to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you click to be notified when click the bell, you'll be notified when new videos are posted or anytime I go live. Wonderful to be with you, especially this week, because our focus, of course, is on the solstice, which takes place this coming Saturday, and all the opportunities to do some deep spiritual work leading into and sort of a springboard and accelerate into the second half of the year. Already, Angelica checking in, saying she hopes I had a good camping trip. I did have a great camping trip, Angelica. Thank you so much for saying hi. Angelica's checking in on YouTube. If anyone else would like to say hi on whatever platform, on Facebook, it's got to be on my professional page for it to come in here. I'll respond to everyone. We'll have a chance to say hi if there are questions coming up. Would love for you to comment and share and include your perspective and anything that's coming up that you want to ask about. I'd be more than happy to address and explore with you. But before we do anything else, let's take a few minutes and gather energetically and center ourselves. Do a little bit of meditation to begin, shall we? Just setting everything else aside energetically, emotionally, and otherwise. And if you're multitasking right now, I really invite you to not do that. And there's one or two circumstances where I'm just going to ask you flat out, please don't operate a motor vehicle while you're listening or watching. I think that's obvious, but even if you're just listening to this session, to this transmission, it's not safe to do so. You never know when you're going to go to sleep, which is what everyone thinks they're doing when they make that comment when we're in transmission together. You never know when that's going to happen, when you're going to kind of drop out and go into a deeper space. And beyond that, give yourself the gift of your own presence, of this experience of divinity within you in a more intimate and on a deeper level. Allow that to become the dominant part of your experience. So setting aside heavy equipment and motor vehicles and so on, I just invite you to set everything else aside now and even just close your eyes and listen to these words. And if the words begin to fade away, let them go, for the most important part of what is available to open up here is within you, and it's not dependent on me, and it's not about what I'm saying. It's about what's unfolding on within your being, within your awareness, within your body, experientially. Okay, setting all that aside, if it's comfortable for you, breathing in and out through the nostrils, palms to the sky, eyes closed, if all that's comfortable for you, let's do a little bit of breathing and then open into divine connecting breath. And from there, we'll open into transmission together. Deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before in this day, all the way out to the count of 8. And all the dominant ways of thinking, the dominant thoughts, all of that, just release all of that out to the count of 8. And notice how that experience of resonance is beginning to expand throughout your body or in some way in your awareness. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. Just be with the experience, whatever it is. You can't get it wrong. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since you were born, all the way out to the count of 8. And with this, not just the dominant thoughts, but also the dominant emotions that have been expressing maybe lately, maybe for months or years or your entire life, all the way out to the count of 8. And another deep breath in and hold. As you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since the inception of your soul, all the way out to the count of 8. And with that, the dominant way of being. And in your mind's eye, just begin noticing that cue of breath serving you. No conditions, no criteria of any sort. You breathe in 1 unit of breath, another replaces it at the back of the cue. And you may even notice a color beginning to infuse itself, static or dynamic, through the cue. Be with the breath from the perspective of that color with the next breath you draw in, nostrils, crown, lungs. Staying in the lungs, in your mind's eye, in your imagination, in your intuitive awareness, at whatever level is coming up for you. That color is illuminating the vector of the breath. Lungs, lining, bloodstream, cells in the body. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. And notice the breath of the planet serving you, your neighbor's neighbor, and so on. With each breath, you are connected to all these people. And notice how that awareness of the connection expands out beyond your neighborhood and your community, perhaps to the continent or hemisphere, eventually the entire planet. With each breath, you are connected to every single person on the planet. And notice the breath of the planet serving not just people, but also animals and insects and grass and trees and dirt and rocks and water and fish, everything. With each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything above, upon, and within the planet. And you may even have this awareness at a very deep level that you are breathing by and for and of the planet itself. Again, whatever is coming up for you is perfect. And notice how the breath of the planet expands and becomes the breath of the cosmos. For with each breath, you are connected not just to those things that are supported and served by the breath of the planet, but that are supported and served by the entirety of the breath of the universe. The breath of our planet connecting into space and every other part of space, including that which underwrites every expression of consciousness in the universe, even those that we perceive as non-sentient, all of it completely conscious. That energy underwriting everything else, the divine, a light that originates perhaps at a great distance, drawing closer with each breath that you draw in, until it is close enough that you can perceive those twin frequencies that together comprise that light. The frequency of the divine itself, the frequency of perfect health, not just as we understand it as human beings, physical health, emotional health, and so on. Every iteration, known and unknown, these two energies intertwined, expressing as that divine light, eventually drawing close enough that it connects in at the nostrils initially and then instantaneously throughout every level of your being, known and unknown. The invitation extended to the smallest aspects of you. Come, return to your natural state of alignment and resonance. And with that invitation, you may become consciously aware of those artifacts of dissonance that appear to fall away and gather at the universal drain. For whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug. I'll do the same. With each breath, you are connected to everyone, everything, the cosmos, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies, connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you on every level, known and unknown. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. Let's begin. Sometimes as we come together, there's a topic that's top of mind. For me, it's really the solstice, which in a sense is no topic at all, more an experience. Of course, from my perspective, everything is an experience. Everything has, perhaps in its most meaningful expression, an experience. For example, the divine within, we can think about it, but that's limited by what we think we can know. Whereas if we move into an experiential dynamic, our perspective shifts, perhaps in a way that's profoundly meaningful and opens up something new, a new experience, a new perspective, something that can sustain as we open into a deeper experience of who we really are, of what I like to think of as embodied divine resonance. I'm happy to open up to your comments and questions here in just a moment. And I can also feel a very, very powerful resonance opening up for us as a circle. And so I'm not trying to limit the comments or the feedback or the questions at all. Anything coming up as they're coming in live during the live stream here, I'm happy to respond to them during this time. And for those of you who are watching the replay, I can also interact with you in the comments on whatever platform you're in. And I look forward to doing so. So grateful that you're all here. The only way I know you're here is if you comment and say something. I think I made reference to Angelica's comment earlier. Yanya is saying, I wonder if I'm in the right place as you're still not on. Oops, I want to make sure, Yanya, that you are. That you're seeing me now on YouTube. I'm seeing another couple of comments on YouTube. So let's just make sure if somebody can check in and let me know. Jerry is saying hi. Great to be with you again. There's a comment on Facebook from me, but I think it must be from John, who also is an admin for me on my professional page. So John, I think that must be you. And Gary is saying hi. Joseph is saying, deep thanks for your presence. Would you have something to say about the buzzing sensations in hands, head, or feet? Sure, Joseph. I would be happy to talk about that. So for me, the physical resonance that I'm referring to in my body expresses, and I like to think of the body as an intuitive guidance system, actually. I think that the body illustrates or expresses as part of the outward expression of that inward, very intimate connection and relationship with the divine by whatever name. So in my body, one of the ways that I experience that connection is my hands buzz, my feet buzz, and other parts of my body, top of my head, crown, mouth, and so on, buzz. And that physical resonance is something that I've come to understand means a couple of different things. In my case, and it may mean the same thing for you, but they may be very different. And you may be thinking, well, I don't know what you're talking about, hands and feet buzzing, Ken. Maybe it happens spontaneously today as we're in transmission together. Perhaps it's something to focus on in greater depth. A resource that I can point you towards that's available all the time as a self-study program is a program called Igniting Resonance. And one of the sessions in that program is focused on the intuitive guidance system. And I'll put a link in the description on replay to a way that you can get a discounted copy of that program. So, okay, so it's the outward expression of that inward connection with divinity, and it means something. And I can tell you in my case, when my feet start buzzing, that is a sign of energetic resonance, the resonance or alignment with the divine. And then when my hands start buzzing and tingling, then that's the outward expression of that. That could be on the level of the physical body and the mind and the outward expression of life. So it's interesting because in the context of a group session like the one we're in right now in transmission, which we are formally, since I said the words "let's begin," following divine connecting breath. Although many people have an experience of the transmission opening up, feeling that physical resonance even in the hours before we come together and sit together in group. In a one-on-one session, these points of feedback are a little easier to correlate because there's a way for us to have a conversation about them. Can you feel that? What does that mean to you? Is that normal, et cetera? A little more interesting in a group dynamic. I would just say that when I talk about waves of physical resonance that are moving through the group, what I'm referring to are what I feel in my hands and feet. And when it's in my hands, as it is right now, very, very strongly, I interpret that as an expression of resonance in the body. If I were working with you and you were in pain and my hands started buzzing, I might ask you, is the pain reducing? And generally, there's a direct correlation between buzzing hands in me, which are really just the representation of the individual or the group I'm working with, and what's happening for them energetically, physically, and otherwise. And so it is with the group, but it's the aggregate of the group. It's not like I have an individual experience or see names or something like that. Flip side, I've done radio shows before, and certainly we could do that here in our weekly time together in this circle as well, where people will ask a specific question, and I'm more than happy to try to explore specific questions, and possibly even, I want to see how this unfolds, but possibly even do individual facilitation in the context of a group. It's a little more challenging when the way we're communicating is over chat versus having an auditory, that's not what I'm trying to say. If we're able to communicate verbally, where I can hear what you're saying, it's a little bit less clumsy than if you have to type down what's coming in for you. But anyway, I'm more than happy to explore that if that's something that anyone would like to explore. Joseph, if there's more you'd like me to talk about on this question, on this topic, I'm more than happy to do that. Thanks for the question. Glad you're here. Gary is checking in. Again, I love hearing from you. Gary, you always put a big smile on my face. Welcome back from your camping adventure. Thank you very much for being here. I'm so glad you're here too, Gary. Lots of love to you as well. Angelica says that she could see me on YouTube. Ta-da! That's so exciting. John says, yes, it was me. Shani says, hi, Ken. Yanya says, yes, I can hear and see you now. Hallelujah, Yanya. That's great. Hello from Cambridge in the UK, from Lizzie. I'm feeling blessed to be part of the circle. Can you please describe how you allow spirit or open to spirit? Woo! Lizzie, you're going to make me cry here. I've got emotion coming up with that question. How do I open to spirit? I want to give a bite-sized answer. Although I have a really hard time giving bite-sized answers because the teacher in me wants to give you something succinct that's easy to digest, and then I want to explain the foundation of that. It's this affliction that I have where I want to explain it. Let me put it to you this way. At this point in my life, I don't open to spirit. I have an experience of spirit with me always. The way that I open, and I experience that in the same way that I was just describing in response to Joseph's question. So I experience spirit, the divine God, whatever you want to call it, universe, source. I experience that all the time. And my hands and feet are buzzing all the time and tingling. And if you wonder what that means, think about your foot going to sleep or your hand going to sleep. It's kind of like that, but it's different because my hands aren't going to sleep, my feet aren't going to sleep, and other parts of my body aren't going to sleep. It feels like a physical sensation. And it's actually one of the reasons why even when I'm working, let's say on a retreat or in a workshop dynamic in person, which I'm sure will begin to happen again at some point in the future when we're allowed to travel again and hang out in groups and so on, and that's part of our world once again. I don't do any hands-on work because there's nothing to do hands-on. In fact, if I were to put, like right now, my hands and feet are buzzing in a huge way. If I put my hand on my arm, this actually reduces the feedback that I'm getting. Okay, this isn't really to your question though. Your question, Lizzie, is how do I open to that? So at this point, spirit's with me always. I open to that in transmission with others by going through the process that we go through at the beginning of every session. In more advanced groups, like for example, in the deep dive workshop, we have a much more condensed experience with divine connecting breath. It's much quicker transition from the beginning of the transmission into transmission. But that sort of the words, let's begin now, or let's begin, are the way that I formally open to the experience with spirit with everyone in the circle. And I have an experience of that outside of time and space. What I mean by that is that I can't tell how many people, I mean, I could look at the screen and it'll tell me so many people are watching right now, but many other people will watch this in the, hours and days and months to come. I have an experience of everyone who will ever see this right now. And I'm having that experience on this visceral level. Those are the most simple ways that I can answer this question. There's a much more detailed exploration that I'm happy to go into, Lizzie, if that is, if that's of interest to you. I'm remembering last week, I can't remember who it was. Somebody asked a question and they asked it in jest, knowing that I wouldn't understand that it was a question in jest. In any case, I thought it was hilarious they did that. Lizzie, I'm more than happy to explore how we all can open up, or how you might open up to an experience of spirit at a deeper level. And I'm happy to go into whatever depth is meaningful for you around that question, if in fact it's a question that you have. Oh, and I forgot to put your question up, but here you are, Lizzie. I'll put you up there so everyone can see your name. And here's Sharon saying, please tell me more about sensing differently for an event, a thing compared to an experience. Okay, Sharon, hang on a second. Let me see if I can get what you're saying here. Please tell me more about. I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you let me just see if I can open up a little bit here, Sharon, and tune in an event. Oh, okay. I'm going to assume this is what you're asking. Are you asking me how do I differentiate between an ongoing experience and a particular event? I'm going to assume that's what you're asking. If you're asking something different, jump in, please, and put me on the right path before I get too carried away. So, actually, this is one of the key reasons why. Let me, oh, somebody else. Someone just said, Kimberly said, I don't know how I found this, but I like it. Hallelujah. I'm glad you're here, Kimberly. uh, uh, oh, and how, and that, okay. And here's Sharon saying, and that we experience that differently. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So I just want to restate the question again so it's clear in my awareness and in all of our awareness. I love it when people just randomly show up. It's never random. Divinity is showing us exactly where we need to be. It's the question is, are we going to trust it? Are we going to follow that inner sense? I would love to tell you I follow it all the time. Most of the time I do. Some of the time I resist. Can you resonate? Okay, here's the question that Sharon is asking, I think. And Sharon, again, if I'm off the beaten path here, how do we differentiate between things that are going on internally and externally versus an event or an experience that's unfolding? That is, how do I differentiate that, my private experience? And then from that, we can extrapolate perhaps on how you might do the same. Yes, and what the different experience is. Here's the thing, it's not different for me. My experience of my intuitive guidance system, of the feedback going on in my body, is the same all the time. So that could be very confusing to me. What is this related to? What's happening here, right? These might be questions that are going on all the time for me. And here's how I differentiate it. And this has always worked for me, and I'm not sure why I started doing it this way. And let me see if I can actually articulate this with words. I see your follow-up, Lizzie, and I'll come back to you here in a second. So the way that I differentiate between this, Sharon, is that I am not in transmission, that is to say, working with anyone else in session, except when I am in session. So when I'm walking around in my life, I am not opening up to, the energy of the room or the energy of an individual, or I'm not trying to do anything in that dynamic, do air quotes. Whereas when I'm in transmission or in session, that is demarcated by some form of divine connecting breath and let's begin, or in private session, it happens a little bit differently, which those of you who have done private session work with me know what the difference there is. And so when that dynamic, one of the ways that begins is for whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug. I'll do the same. Let's begin. There's the beginning of the transmission. For me, that's when I open up to the aspect of me that is expressing as the individual or the group with whom I'm working. And then it ends or comes to a close when I say at the end of the transmission, I invite you to return the universal plug. I'll do the same as I begin bringing this transmission to a close. And then at some point I'll say, transmission to a close, plug all the way in, da, 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 da. There it is. The door is open, the door is closed. That's my experience of it. So the rest of the time, it's all about, and this is just, it's not even really a choice I made. It's not like I said, okay, God, here's the deal. Maybe God told me, I don't know, I can't remember this. But the rest of the time, everything that's going on is happening internal. It's guidance and it's an experience that's opening up for me. And so how do I know that I'm on the right path or moving towards whole north, true north, following that intuitive guidance system, that compass towards following where guidance is leading me, where the divine is calling me, etc. How do I know that? I have this experience of physical resonance when I'm on the right path, and when I've moved off the path or I'm not following guidance or following how I'm called, then the resonance goes away. And I mean, the physical resonance goes away. And that's how I interpret those things. And sometimes it's difficult to figure out how to get back into resonance. But to Lizzie's question, I think it was Lizzie. Yes. To Lizzie's question, that process, as you know, Sharon, begins for me with a soul embodiment process. So which is always happening when we're in transmission together, whether I'm talking about it or not. I believe that's one of the things that God is doing through me all the time in transmission. So that's it for me, Sharon. I differentiate between the two by being very clear when I'm in transmission or in session with another or others, and when I'm not. And anytime I'm not, everything else going on there is about my private relationship with divinity. And interestingly, everything that's going on in the session relates to the group or the individual with whom I'm working, and none of that relates to me. And there are other forms of feedback that show up for me that confirm that for me. Great question, Sharon. Ian is checking in. Glad to be here. Glad you're here, Ian. Thanks so much for saying hi. Angelica is asking, what about a buzzing heart? What about it? It sounds phenomenal, Angelica. What do you think it means to you? I would love to hear your insight into this. But sure, absolutely. Buzzing heart. I mean, there's all sorts of tingling and buzzing that goes on all the time. I try to just keep it very simple because it makes it easier to talk about if we're going to talk about that kind of thing. But there's resonance going on all the time. Like right now, there's this line of resonance that's moving around my head at this level. I'm interpreting it as related to a level of resonance opening up, and within the third eye, you might be saying, well, this isn't really the third eye, Ken. No, but this band is. And I can feel that in my occipital ridge in the back, and on and on. So the thing is, don't take what I interpret it to be what it means for you. It's really about a relationship that is opening up for you within you with divinity by whatever name. And just like any other relationship, this relationship, I think, responds to attention, to presence, and it's a relationship that deepens to an infinite depth over time. And it's very personal. It's a very intimate experience. And so I wouldn't want to suppose or presume to tell you what those things mean. I would invite you to explore them for yourself. And you can actually use your intuitive guidance system as a way of discovering what they mean too, which would be an interesting thing to explore at some point. Great question. Oh, Sharon is setting me more straight here. I didn't even see this. Regarding the solstice, that it was an experience, not an event. Yes. Thank you for bringing me back on track. The solstice is an experience. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure maybe you and everyone is aware, there's this movement through the solstice opening into it. I've been experiencing at least for the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's just this tremendous amplification. Everything that is held in separation has been coming up for transmutation. How do we know that something's held in separation? It's pushing your buttons. It's pushing your buttons. That's how you know. It's triggering you in some way. Something is getting stirred up. And oftentimes, as spiritual people, we think, oh, I don't want to have those feelings. Those things are too messy. Have them, allow them to come out, because they're so instructive. They're illuminating, from my perspective, they're illuminating some essential part of you still held in separation. That's why they're showing up and being experienced as dissonance. That's how I interpret that. And then there's a process for transmuting, which involves soul embodiment and so on. And then in that transition on the solstice, there is this opening that happens. I actually used to do this series called Solstice for Your Soul. I did a transmission on the June and the December solstice, and then in the March and September equinox at these transition points. And I had guidance, I think it was maybe almost 2 years ago, to stop that. And I actually kind of ignored guidance and did the solstice in December that year, and then that series wrapped up. If you'd like to be in transmission with me on Saturday this week, you can do that by joining the deep dive workshop. We're doing a deep dive 7 tomorrow, and we're going to do a special transmission on Saturday for the solstice itself. And Sharon, you're already part of that group, so you'll have a chance to experience that. And I'll put a link in the description. I'll put a link up here in a little bit for the deep dive if you're interested in exploring that. Here's Kimberly. Oops. I pushed the wrong button. Here's Kimberly. This is what made me giggle earlier. It says Kimberly, but there's a picture of okay, so Kimberly, beautiful. Okay, so Lizzie is saying, thanks for the answer. I get tired if I'm open all the time and find it tricky to be in busy situations, etc., but can't switch on and off easily. For me, Lizzie, this is a question that I was exploring with Sharon. The question isn't so much whether you're open to spirit, but how you're open to spirit. So are you open to a spirit in the interior experience of what's unfolding in your life, or are you open to every aspect of spirit all at once? I am not integrated enough to be open to spirit in that way. And it sounds like you're not either. And so what I would encourage you to do is find a way of being in the interior of your experience, completely open to spirit, and then having that experience with and for yourself. Empaths often have a challenging time with this. An empath is somebody who is, let's say, sort of naturally open or susceptible or gifted in the sense that they're aware of what other people are feeling and experiencing. And an unintegrated empath is an exhausted person who is trying to navigate life to figure out how they fit in the world and so on. An integrated empath is somebody who is at absolute peace wherever they are, with the ability to open to the experience of what others are feeling and so on in an appropriate, loving, respectful dynamic. Most essentially in ways that are loving and respectful to themselves, but also in ways that respect people's sovereignty, their own ability to say, give permission and allow one to open up. And so there's a whole exploration that is available there. Interestingly enough, if you're looking for a resource to support you in this, Lizzie, Igniting Resonance is a wonderful place to start. You're sharing. This is so funny. That wasn't actually my question, but it was helpful nonetheless. You're so kind. That's beautiful. Sharon, thanks for adding the answer regarding the solstice. Sure thing. Kimberly is saying, this is exactly happening to me. Triggering of separation to be transmuted. Yes. I think it's happening for all of us. I think if you look at what's happening, and by the way, if you've got a question or a comment, I'm through the queue. And Kimberly's adding more. I'll put Kimberly's comment up. It's my dead husband who died on my birthday last July. Oddly enough, I'm dealing with an ambulance bill that was denied by Medicare due to an incorrect code that said his trip from the hospital to hospice, where he died 4 days later. Well, in memory of your husband, thank you for sharing his picture with all of us, Kimberly. And so what's being triggered? Let's go back to this question. This is I believe this is what's happening for us individually and collectively. If you look at, and when I say us, think of the planet, think of what's getting triggered right now on a global level. If you want to look at the United States right now, there's all sorts of stuff that's getting stirred up right now that, let me say it differently, that is coming to the forefront of awareness. The stuff has been stirred up for hundreds of years. This dynamic around the systemic racism and the oppression of Black people and so on and so forth. I mean, there's just all this stuff going on. The same dynamic could be going on within us individually, and the opportunity for transmutation is to feel it fully as we're going through an embodiment experience. So as we drop into transmission at a deeper level, I just invite you, Kimberly, to feel fully whatever's coming up and know that it will be transmuted to the degree that you're willing to feel it and express it. Okay, Let's see if anyone else has got a comment or a question coming up. Otherwise, it's time for us to drop into transmission. I'm going to wait just a moment. Last call for any questions or comments coming in. Okay, Lizzie's saying igniting resonance it is then. Woohoo, thanks, Ken. Sure thing, Lizzie. You'll have to check back. And I actually think the only place that I can update with links and so on is on YouTube. So if you haven't already, let me just do a little commercial here. Click the link in the description on whatever platform you're on. That is a hyperlink that will subscribe you to my YouTube channel. I will update that description with a link to Igniting Resonance, and there's a discounted thing there where you can get it for less than you would if you wandered into the thing on its own, and I'll include that that link. Okay. Yes, like a boil that needs lancing. Yeah, yeah, let's go with your metaphor here for just a minute. I'm not going to get gross with this. I just want to explore this idea with you. The lancing is the allowing it to express. Okay, that's the key. And there's a question here. I think Kimberly is asking, what does it mean to feel fully? Let me answer this question. I'll leave Kimberly's comment up here. So when we drop into transmission, one of the ways that I would describe, and we're already in transmission at some level, but there's a lot of talking going on. I'm doing a lot of talking. And that talking is holding us back from a deeper level of work together, which we're going to do here in just a minute. So don't worry. But when we move into that deeper level of work, I won't be talking as much, and I won't be trying to interact at all at the level of your thinking mind. So if there are words, those words will be in support of the experience that is unfolding. And if you just want to think of it in this simple term, your soul in its disembodied state, that is when it's triggered, will disembody, massively triggered, will disembody up to the top of the head. But when it's embodied, it descends down into the hips. And it's not all in the hips. It enlivens everything between the crown and the base of the torso. The legs, I don't want to get into all of it here. You'll learn more about this in Igniting Resonance. It's not that I don't want to share it with you. I just get all excited about trying to be more complete. And then all of a sudden we're on a wild safari ride into the depths of my awareness, which may or may not offer anything meaningful in this context, unless you're interested in diving deeper, in which case Igniting Resonance, great resource. So here's the point. Feel fully. As we're dropping into transmission, your soul is coming down. It's enlivening everything, all the things you really are and all the things that are not who you really are. Think of those things as wounds and traumas that are incomplete. There's a charge around them still. They're enlivened too. So when they're enlivened, you feel that emotionally, physically, maybe both, and in other ways. Feel fully. What I mean by that is don't try to contain it. If it feels horrible, move towards it. Allow the horrible feeling to wash over you. If it feels horrible physically, allow the pain to consume you. If it feels horrible emotionally, allow that to consume you. Let me say this, to the degree that you're comfortable doing so, right? I'm not trying to like twist your arm here spiritually or energetically. The thing God does through me is support your embodied soul. What you do with that is up to you. And I'm suggesting the degree to which you allow yourself to feel whatever those untransmuted feelings are is the degree to which they will transmute. Is that all I need to do? Yes, I'm not particularly technically savvy, but I hope I will find the link. Yeah, you'll just have to come back. I'll get the description updated. Here's another, I'll get the description updated on YouTube. Okay. I don't understand this question. So maybe this is someone is, I don't understand. Dan, I don't understand what your question means. So you'll have to explain it to me. I prefer not to put it up because I'm not even sure what it means. So if you can explain it more, I'm more than happy to explore it with you. I cry a lot. Hey, so do I. And the thing is that if we have a pathway to actually expressing and transmuting. From my perspective, the embodied soul is, I don't want to say it's the only way to transmute, because I don't think that's true. But the embodied soul, to my perception, is the embodied divine presence within you. That the fire, you could think of it in some traditions, it might be called the fire of the Holy Spirit. So that fire is a consuming fire. And if you allow yourself to release, that is to express whatever is held back, it will come up to be expressed. Christopher Bradley, hello, my friend. Hello, Christopher. Glad you're here. Okay, so let's do this. It's wonderful. I will acknowledge more people before we close today. Oh, I said I would put a link. Let me just do this now so that the link is up for deep dive. Chris McPhee is saying, am I against gays? No, I am not. Whoops. I am not against gays. Not at all. Not at all. I'm not against any group of people. I believe that divinity expresses through each of us in a unique way. And so I guess one way to describe this with language is to say that I take a very inclusive view of things. So for me, sexual orientation, gender identity, ethnicity, race, none of these things are something to try to classify as a form of minimizing or perpetrating or expressing in anger or hatred or anything like that. So I hope that answers your question, Chris. I'm glad you're here. Christopher is saying, how do you feel about pro-trans or pro-heterosexual? To me, it's not an or. Listen, if I'm more than happy to explore this, and here's what I want to say. These kinds of questions have the potential to draw the conversation into an exploration of polarity. And from my perspective, it's not necessary. It's not an important area to explore. I'm not saying that transgender identity isn't something important to be able to express comfortably, safely, etc. I think it's essential. I think it's essential to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter. And the thing I feel especially called to do now, especially given the conversation that we've had so far today, is to drop into transmission and to support a deeper experience of divinity. From my experience, divinity is not sorting based on any of these things. God's love is not attenuated, limited, or severed on any level based on actually any way that we differentiate ourselves as human beings, or some human beings differentiate one another. As for my own experience and perspective on this, let me be clear. Divinity is equally present in all of us. And what I mean by that is God's love is uncontained and fully expressed in each and every human being. And that is my experience as well. I hope that answers. There's a question here about that's drawing into a conversation that I'm not going to have. I'm not going to participate in this kind of polarity. This is going on over on Facebook. This is the kind of stuff that's been going on Facebook lately, and it's driving me nuts. I don't want to talk about it. With all due respect, we don't need to discuss how we address any group of people except to talk about them with love. And if you can't talk about them with love, I lovingly invite you to disengage with this circle. This circle and our time together is an experience of God's embodied love for everyone. And though I can appreciate that you may not be ready for that right now, that's what we're doing now. I invite you to close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, hold, and as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before, releasing all of it as we open into a deeper experience of the divine within. One of the things that makes me cry is the experience of witnessing an individual or a group opening up to a deeper experience of divine presence, of that unconditional love. It's one of the reasons why these questions about how do we address this or what do we do with people who are identified in this way or that don't resonate with me. The thing we do is we love. That's what we are called to do. That's how we are treated. Whatever distortions or activities or thoughts that we've had in separation in our lives from the perspective of believing or experiencing ourselves as cut off from the divine, still, God's love for us is unending and unconditional. And if the name God doesn't resonate because it calls a religious context forward for you, drop it and replace it with whatever word does. I am not using the name God to invoke a particular religious perspective. I could just as easily be saying the divine. Members of our community include people from all the major faith traditions and spiritual traditions and backgrounds and beliefs from around the world. Our community involves and includes people of every gender and sexual orientation, gender identity, ethnicity, race, and so on. It's not how we identify ourselves here in this circle, by the things that appear as different, but instead open to an experience of divinity in whatever way is meaningful for you according to your beliefs and perspective. I believe my role here, my mission, my divine mission, is to support others in deepening their relationship with the divine by whatever name. My work is not about trying to explore or express a particular perspective, except to open a deeper experience of divinity to support that within you, that you may have a more intimate relationship with the divine, that you may discover and experience who you really are in a way that's meaningful for you. Another deep breath in, hold, As you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before with words, as we shift from a focus on language to an opening to that interior experience with the embodied divine, whatever it is, opening up to express whatever is coming up to be expressed, to feel fully whatever is coming up to be felt, that those things held in separation may be transmuted by the embodied divine presence, however you think of it or refer to it, that you may open more fully to the experience of who you are. First, by being more fully human, as Thomas Keating once said to me, and then that may open a pathway to experiencing your divinity more fully. I just want to apologize to the users over on Facebook for the comments that I didn't realize I could delete or block that just are not congruent with our circle here. I'm cleaning them up now. They have no place for our sacred space. There's a little bit of technology learning curve from me. And honestly, I've never had this kind of interaction in a live stream before. So to everyone on Facebook, my apologies. Deep breath in. and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, dropping more fully into your embodied center. It's always this dynamic of macro, micro. What is unfolding in the macro, that is, in the big dynamic in the world, is reflecting what is going on individually. And I guess it's no surprise that in a transmission and in a community circle focused on the transition up to the solstice and through the solstice, that some of this dissonance would come up to be expressed by people who are clearly not part of the community on an ongoing basis, but here to stir up some stuff. Nothing stirred up except those things that need to be transmuted. It's beautiful. As we move deeper here, just notice those waves of resonance that are moving through your being. Sometimes the source of what is getting stirred up is just unknowable. It could be grief or laughter, anguish, many different emotions or sensations in the body. And sometimes a natural inclination as a way of reducing vulnerability and overexposure. As human beings, sometimes we hold things at arm's length, or we want to try to analyze or think or talk about or describe it so that we don't have to feel it. My invitation to you, and I believe the invitation, an opportunity that comes with an embodied soul, is to feel it no matter what it is. It's been very in vogue to say, well, that's not mine, that's someone else's. Don't worry about it. If it's coming up for you to express, some part of it is yours. And it doesn't matter. It's okay if there's something coming up to be transmuted. It's okay if you're not fully integrated. There's a journey here. It's not a destination. It's a process, the process of refinement. We're going to keep this transmission open for a while here. So just be fully with whatever is coming up to be felt. Sometimes it feels like heavy lifting. And I suppose in a way it is heavy lifting. But consider this, when you lift, that is, when you feel fully these things that you have been carrying around with you, you are literally transmuting the baggage that has been holding you back from a more complete experience of who you really are, of your whole self, of your divine nature, of the experience of your wholeness. Not the idea of it, the actual visceral, felt in the body experience of who you really are. The love that is pouring in here is so beautiful, so wonderful. I don't want to, I just want to acknowledge the people on the various platforms who are taking time to comment. It's so moving. They'll be there later. You can open your eyes. I'm just saying thank you for it's the integrity of the circle is being honored by each and every participant. And if you're new here, you might be thinking, oh, I'll send some energy or I'll take some of this and I'll spread it around. I'll include the people I love. You know, the way to include the people you love, the people you care about, the people you would send this to, is just have them watch this, have them participate, open, share it with them, but don't send anything to them. The reason is there's nothing to send. Don't get caught in separation. We're opening into wholeness here. We're transmuting what is held in separation. There's nothing to send. What is enlivened in you is enlivened in everyone. That is divinity. All that is not real is transmuted when we feel. That's it. Just do the work for yourself. Others, when they're ready, will do it as well. Or they'll do other work and that'll be meaningful for them. Whatever resonates is perfect. But just stay in your own experience. Mm. I can feel in the collective in our circle here as these things are transmuting. There's just more and more resonance that I can feel in my hands. And if you're thinking, well, all I'm feeling right now is really crappy emotionally or physically, if you can go into it deeper, instead of resisting it, allow it to consume you. It won't, even though it might feel as though it will. It will not. But if you can move towards it like you might run towards uh, no one would do it. The instinct would be to run away from something like that. But I'm saying run towards it. Run towards it. Allow it to consume you. If you're ready, allow it. Feel it fully. The alchemy of this dynamic is there are two elements to this alchemy. One is the presence of the divine, which is already within you. And one of the things God does through me is enliven that within you in a really, let's say, significant and meaningful way for many people. And the second element is you feeling whatever gets stirred up, whatever gets stirred up, whatever it is. Beautiful. If you're feeling something and something unpleasant, let's say physically or emotionally, and you're thinking, now, when is this going to end? Flip it around and say, I hope this is all there ever is. And then allow it to consume you. That may stir some stuff up. Wait a second, am I attracting more of this in? Don't worry about that. Or here's the answer. Sure, you're attracting in more of an experience of everything that is untransmuted, but let's go even deeper. The uh, the dynamic of attraction from a place of control has you at the center of the universe issuing commandments to the divine, the genie in the bottle, so to speak. But actually, God doesn't need to be told what to do. God is waiting to more fully express in, through, and as you. If only you allow yourself to get out of the way. And the only way the separate self gets out of the way is that it is transmuted. And the way it gets transmuted is whatever is held there is stirred up and then it's felt. Hmm. Beautiful. Deep, deep resonance. The separate mind wants to categorize, resist categorization, just feel. The origin for this exercise doesn't matter, just feel it. In fact, this may sound weird, but understanding something at this level is unnecessary. I don't mean it's not important in certain contexts, but here, in the alchemy of the embodied divine and you feeling whatever's coming up that's held in separation, understanding the source of that is just a move into separation. So, if possible, just feel it. Just allow yourself to feel it and express it. Again, beautiful work. If you think about your life, just reflect on the last month, the last 2 months, this calendar year. Think about all the energy you put into suppressing feelings of fear or sadness or a loss of control or grief or whatever the emotions are. I don't want to label them or put them on you. You know what they are. And then think about, just reflect, hold an awareness for a brief moment, the ways that you avoided letting yourself feel those things. And maybe some of the other stuff from earlier in your life that triggered, that the last 6 months has triggered for you. And what I'm saying is right now, feel all of it fully. Take the handbrake off. Let the bus go. You're not driving, God's driving, and you're going to think, oh, this is a fiery flaming crash. This is going to be horrible. Just let yourself feel, however horrible you think it is. Just feel it physically, emotionally, on whatever level. By feeling it, it is transmuted. In fact, the degree to which you feel it is the degree to which it is transmuted. And if you're thinking, I don't want to deal with this stuff again, great. Feel it fully. P.S. It's not like a magic pill or a magic switch on the wall. We don't just flip it on and then sweep everything clean. You're a complex person. You're a complex series of systems interacting with a wonderfully complex history and so on and so forth. So remember, process, journey, not results and outcome, process, journey. So if you get good at feeling, allowing yourself to sink into those feelings while transmuting, that is a powerful skill. That's a powerful process. Serves you today, tomorrow, next week, and so on. Not just in the run up to the solstice. Beautiful. Let's just invite you to sit in this resonance here. You keep your eyes closed. I just want to share some of the reflections that are coming in. Thank you for positively holding space for us. from Gary. Susan, sometimes a little dissonance must fall, which answered the question on my mind that I didn't ask. God works in mysterious ways. All that coming from Susan. John saying, I cleaned up some things. I've got your back. Lizzie, all is well. Kimberly, I've been wailing too much to write, but I'm so grateful. Gary, thank you for keeping and holding a positive space here on Facebook. Kimberly, without necessarily knowing what is or who it's for. Yes. Kimberly says, I love you. Beautiful. And then later, everybody, I love you. It is amazing to open up to the experience of the embodied divine. Such a powerful love. Oh my goodness. Lizzie, can it ever be labeled as self-indulgent, this feeling stuff all the time? I suppose. But I wouldn't worry about it. This type of self-indulgence, this focus on your inner process is so important. Oftentimes we get caught up, what can I do for others? Or how do I need to be so that da 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 da. This, what I'm suggesting to you is being whatever you are, however you are, for yourself and with yourself in this space. Open something extraordinary up. This is not self-indulgent. This is the pathway for integration. This is the pathway for opening up to deeper resonance in your life. If you suppress your own experiences of dissonance in an effort to try to offer and provide resonance for others, it's impossible. The interior first, then the exterior. You know the ancient saying, as above, so below. Most people interpret that. Get it right above and the below works itself out. It's the other way. Get things in line below in the hidden space in the interior. What you're saying, is this self-indulgent? No, move into the interior, into the below. Come into resonance here and everything else follows in resonance. Angelica, thanks so much. Love. Beautiful. I had a thought here. Let me see if I can do this on the fly. No, I'm not going to be able to. Okay, never mind. Okay. I invite you to begin returning the universal plug. I'll do the same as I begin bringing this transmission to a close. What a powerful opportunity to sit with you, to resonate, to transmute, to feel whatever is coming up to be felt. Plug all the way in. Transmission to a close now. May the days and hours leading up to the solstice be fruitful in your exploration of the divine within, in your work around transmuting those aspects still held in separation. And may the transition, the opening on Saturday into the second half of the year, open within you and within us all a deeper experience of the divine within, of the resonance that flows from that space. And most essentially, the love that has been expressed and experienced here in our time together. Such an honor to be connected with you in this way, to share space in this sacred space, to sit and resonate together. If it resonates with you, I'd love to have you join the Deep Dive 7 workshop. I put a link up earlier. I'll put one in the description as well. We're live tomorrow on video in a private workshop or retreat dynamic. And again, that same group gathers on Saturday for transmission in the solstice. And of course, look forward to being back with you and our expanding circle, exploring the divine within. Next Wednesday at the same time, 5 Eastern each Wednesday. Until then, peace.